Hi, LinkedIn. I am Dan Roth, LinkedIn's editor-in-chief. You're watching This Is Working. This is a show where I talk to leaders who are changing the way we live and we work. People like Richard Branson, Mark Cuban, Sarah Blakely. You can find all these interviews and future ones by following the LinkedIn news page. We have the link on the screen and in the chat. And today we have a very special guest, Robert Downey Jr. You might know Robert Downey Jr. as an actor, a producer. This guy is a bit of a pop culture icon, but maybe not as a venture capitalist. Earlier this year at Davos, Downey announced the launch of 2 investment funds with the goal to fight climate change. His organization, Footprint Coalition, has already invested in 6 startups, all of them in the sustainability space. Now Downey is working to raise more investment and more attention for his vision of a greener future through startups in areas ranging from insect proteins to banking. Robert, thank you for joining us here today. Where are we?
Got you, Dan. I'm in a lovely, sunny Venice, California at our production offices, which are, tentatively back open.
Great. Are you like at 100%, say 80%? How many people are coming into the office right now?
The future is hybrid, my brother, as we all know, right?
That's true.
I think some places like a big agencies or whatever, and I'm sure folks can relate to this, it's a sliding scale. Some people are saying everybody report for no good reason. Other people are saying as your conscience dictates. All I know is it feels different. And after the longest day of the year, it's all downhill from here.
All right. Well, speaking of different, I would love to talk to you about your career pivot, about what you are focused on right now, especially looking at the Footprint Coalition. So you have in the last couple of years started doing, you've gone from telling stories and talking about the environment and saving the planet to actually investing in some of these companies, these startups that should make a difference in being able to protect us. So would you walk us through the Footprint Coalition, the founding of it, and exactly what you announced at Davos this year?
Sure. Well, first, hi, everybody. This is really nice and fun. I'm glad to be joining in. I've known what LinkedIn is for a long time, but I've always felt other. So I feel I've come home to roost with the rest of y'all chickens. The way it timed out as I was wrapping up my Marvel contract and Remars asked me to be a keynote speaker. I didn't want to just be a celebutante add-on to a bunch of actually smart and better minds talking. So I thought I would announce that I was going to spend about half my waking hours for the next 10 years trying to do my version of tackling this climate crisis. But with a bent towards education, understanding, and reframing this ridiculous political polarization of the obvious fact that we can do better, and if we roll up our sleeves, we will.
And were you nervous when you made that decision? How do you go from doing something that you've been doing, I think, since you're like 8 years old, to deciding this was going to be a new area you were going to start? You had to understand the science. You had to find the right people, who to trust, where to put your money, because these are you're not just telling these stories, you're actually investing alongside these folks.
Yep.
How did you decide that you were up to the task to start doing this? Was that a hard decision to make?
Inside data, I called up Ashton Kutcher. He said, hang up on me and call a guy named Bran Farron. Bran Farron was the lead Imagineer at Disney, and now he does a lot of high-level military projects. He's one of the great creative problem solvers of our age. 200 plus patents, invented pinch and zoom, amongst other things. And he said storytelling is storytelling. The real thing behind most startups is at the beginning their story and how you get the wind in their sails. And I'm used to receiving a lot of pitches in my day job, my production company with my missus. And so we figured, it's new territory. We love the people. We love the energy. We love the opportunity. But we're also quite discerning, as one must be. If every project that got pitched to us was a movie or a TV show, there'd be a lot of garbage out there. So we kick the tires in the same way that we would in our other day jobs.
And then for you personally, was it important for you to go from this storytelling to the investment? How did you make that decision to go from being something that you were known for, storytelling, to now saying, I'm going to start investing in some of these companies?
Yeah. When your skin's in it, you kind of get a fire under your tookie and you pay more attention. And again, for me, the best way to activate whatever faculties I have is to commit to jumping in, with both feet. But it's been the last, I'd say 18 months have been like a crash course in my incomplete education across the board. But here I am today. I'm talking to you, and I expect you never learn anything when you're talking. So I have a couple questions for you too. I want to hear from the audience. I want to interact. This is the future, dude.
Yeah.
It's like all those paradigms of bureaucratic communication from the top down are over.
That is very true. And we are going to get to questions. In fact, let's see who is on the stream right now. We have members and fans joining from around the world. We have Charles from France, Zeke from Ohio, Maria from Brazil, Carlos from Ecuador. Alessandra says she misses seeing you on screen. Paula says, oh my God, I love you, Robert. And I'm so proud of you tuning in from Argentina. So we have a worldwide crowd here. Let's talk a little bit. And one of the things you mentioned, getting to know LinkedIn, one of the topics that comes up all the time with people is trying to figure out what they're good at, is facing this imposter syndrome and trying to learn new things, also trying to jump from one industry to the next, or move their company in a totally different direction, or start a company. So would you walk through how you are making these decisions on who to invest in?
Yeah.
And just who you want to back, who you want to put your name against? How are you talked about fielding pitches for movies. I assume or I don't know, is it similar to how you field pitches from startups?
It is. I mean, look, now that there's such a sea change, and I think that this climate fighting everything, I'd rather say climate friendly. I would rather say cleaning up after ourselves. It's like it's the big make your damn bed movement. Mm-hmm. And leave things better than you found them, which were kind of a mess. So it's a tall order, but the teams that build around these founders make or break the opportunity to bring these technologies and products to scale. And so oftentimes in my business, you invest in a person who you believe that their strengths can be synergized, and that there's an opportunity to do something novel. So I think part of the thing when talking about how do you discern is that I think the market is flooded with probably too many people who have good ideas but won't be able to have the muscularity required to bring them to market in a way that makes dollars and cents. And if I learned anything in my years with Marvel, it's like, unfortunately, until some, utopian, next chapter, money moves the needle. Rather, it leverages innovation to become commonplace. And that's something that I learned. There was no Marvel Cinematic Universe 13 years ago. And a small group of motivated people bet on each other and then worked our asses off for a decade.
That's so interesting. Do you see other parallels in how you're doing this? Is part of the goal to have these companies work with each other? Is there a footprint universe, that you're building here, or do they not have to work together?
No, I mean, at best, thus coalition. I see a lot of folks also they want the halo effect. They want to be seen as investing in impact funds, but there's still a lot of turf war going on, even in the most liberal-minded factions, to not want to share, to not want to see how we can help each other without worrying about the bottom line. And, from in my previous day job, IP is everything. But imagine if this wasn't a Disney product. Imagine if this was the legacy we get to leave our children by showing We abandoned pure profit, though we did well by doing good. And what we sought to do was reach across every aisle that we had ever considered to be the other and start breaking down those projections, because this is a full-time job for all of us if we're going to beat the clock.
But you talk about not focusing on the bottom line, but if as you start investing in these companies, don't you have to think about the bottom line? Don't these companies have to make money? I mean, these aren't nonprofits you're investing in. These are for
you have to think about the bottom line for the investors, the people you co-invest in. But look, there's two parts to it, right? One is a business model is critical. And then the other thing is, what is the new version of a business model that makes sense? We're right up the street from Tom's Shoes. Nobody wanted to give away a pair of shoes for every pair of shoes they sold until this guy said, I'll do it. I think that look, philanthropy in Hollywood is it's a mess, because every cause celeb in the world takes hours out of the day of everybody. And I know people, and occasionally I've been one, who are just rolling phone calls all day long trying to raise money for their causes, this and that. But this collective cause has to be bigger than just the fact that you can do as well in it as you could in the open market.
And how are you measuring success? How do you know when you have crossed over and you're getting people to come on board, that you have, and I assume this would have to be happening outside of Hollywood. When will you say, like, okay, this is now in the mainstream. We now have people who want to put their money and their time and their commitment behind what we're doing here?
That sense, it's like, why is take 7 better than take 2? Why is take 2 better than take 12? In the moment, you get this felt sense of that things are connecting, the data backs it up, the timing is right, and there's a clear communication of what the obstacles are. I think sometimes if something feels good, it's very dangerous. I always say, beware the passion project, my brothers and sisters. Not because passion projects aren't important, but because you can start making sacrifices that you wouldn't normally make with your discernment in your efforts to want to see this realized. So I'll say it flat out. I think in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of duds going on because people wanted to do something good rather than something that was good business.
Yeah.
So I think part of the future is you have to really, really, really drill down and make sure that the companies you back are capable of representing this movement in as ironclad a way as possible.
It is a small cohort of people who have made this jump to going from super well-known celebrity to deeply involved in business. One of them is one of your Marvel co-stars, Gwyneth Paltrow. She was on this show years ago when she was starting Goop. And she said two things that have always stuck with me. And I would love to see whether you've found something similar. One thing is that she said that it was hard for people at the beginning of Goop. She found that people didn't take her seriously because they knew her for being super well known in this other world. And that's all they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about her e-commerce company. And then two, and this was still, I think, one of the best headlines written on LinkedIn, is she said, an article she wrote, the headline was, "I walked away from a career where people kissed my ass and I couldn't be happier about it." So I would love to know from you, as you've made this career move, has there been anything that surprised you in a good or a bad way in how people react to you as you have moved into this next part of your life?
Well, first of all, I want to double back because it was during pre-production for Iron Man 1, down at what is now the YouTube, megalopolis. But back then it was the Hughes aircraft hangars where they built the Spruce Goose. And she was starting this up, and she was ahead of the curve. And it took her years to gain credibility. But she was undeterred because it felt right to her, and turns out she was right. For me, the future is uncertain, but the credibility gap was a bit quicker only because of this strange association with this certain character I played who understood tech and understood how to put it to work for creative and existential problem solving. So we laugh. I was at dinner with her and my missus and her fellow the other night. We were talking to a young, very promising founder of an AI customer service company, and then all these other connections happened at the dinner table where we realized we had all been on each other's minds in 3 or 5 other ways during this day. So again, it's those moments of undeniable synchronicity where you realize that you've kind of caught up with some portion of your destiny. And I hate to bring that into it because it sounds like a feely, touchy-feely granola thing, but it isn't. It is part of what everybody can attest to. You know when things are clicking and the Swiss watch effect happens.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, I got to say, for the planet's sake, it's good that Marvel didn't cast you as, a serial killer or something. It's good that you can, because of who you were in those movies, you can get these intros. Let's say hi to some members. We have Kenny from Bay Area. Yes, Michael from Colombia, Catherine from Germany, Michael from Ireland. All right, here's a question. Hermie says, thank you for sharing this. Oh, this isn't a question yet. Hermie says, thank you for sharing this timely topic and for being an awesome speaker. I'm joining from the Philippines. Okay, here are some questions. Jennifer, Vanessa, and Prashant all asked the same question, which is, can you talk about a few investments you were jazzed about? What's the most exciting technology or idea you can share with us?
Yes. Well, I'll avoid this page that says, do not discuss stealth unannounced investments such as... No.
Yeah, we're family. You can do it here. It's fine. Bring it all up. No one's going to say anything.
Again, Ryan Morris, Turntide Motors, high efficiency switch reluctance motors. Andre Cherny, the neobank called Aspiration. I'm actually doing a big push with them this week. Got their credit card. Wish I had it in my hand to show you. Insect building the largest bug farm on the planet. I was talking about that on Colbert roundabout, I think, the Super Bowl last year. And that's going to be farm fish, pet food. And I really, really want to synergize with them and get some performance proteins going because I'm a big fitness guy. But also, I want to be the guinea pig out there saying, hey, this works. At Last is making bacon from mycelium, mushroom roots that taste so good. And as my family and I, that's Even Bear, as my family and I are making the very challenging switch to pescatarian, vegetarian, and eventually vegan with some vacillation, these companies are helping us feel like the future is okay to make those changes that have been uncomfortable before. Because we should have to sacrifice nothing. It's 2021.
Yeah.
Everything should be doable.
Huh. Yeah, I love that idea. It is not the saving the planet doesn't require giving. It is possible. It doesn't require giving up things. You can still enjoy your bacon and make the place better. Sarah asked a really interesting question. Did the last year help in furthering the progress of the coalition? Was it easier to brainstorm with the collective hive of people, such as forming venture investment funds? You announced this before the pandemic. The pandemic hit, and now you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting of the actual investing at a time when places were still locked down. So how has that affected your business?
By the way, it's a great question. Thank you. First of all, I'm really having a good time. Thank you. Hi. Love you. Happy Tuesday. Tuesday is the most productive day of the week.
Yeah.
It's twofold. I have not been on a film set for 2 years. And the first year was really by design. I needed to fall back and reassess. And this last year was kind of this great bonus year where, in addition to all of the loss and challenge and grief and existential questioning that we all went through, I mean, my God, what a crucible, was also just like the Chinese symbol for crisis in the I Ching is crisis is opportunity. I just seized it, and I was a captive audience. And I let a lot of really brilliant people, such as yourself, and I'm sure even some people who are on right now, knowing it or not, have been influential in reading or following what you're doing. And I just sponged up as much as I could, and then try to go back to basics about, okay, what's the next right thing to do here to keep this afloat, make it credible, make it solvent, and make it profitable, interesting, entertaining, and educational.
That's great. And there's a follow-up question comes from Jonathan, which is related to this. Do you have recommendations to begin educating ourselves on green technology and sustainability? Any people you talked to, any books you read, any articles you saw, any people you ran into? If you want to tell everyone watching today, like you have to go and read one thing or connect or follow this one person, what would you say?
Well, I'll tell you this. Tom Costigan is a winner. His book, Hacking Planet Earth, we're actually doing several series with him now, but I've gotten to know him well, and he is a very, very advanced thinker, but he's very approachable. But then there's no one in the last 16 months that I would say shouldn't be part of the conversation. And a lot of the founders and innovators and scientists, and even just some of the high level staff at these companies that are, starting to really bring their businesses to scale. It's funny, but again, like the easiest thing to do is take your phone and Google your version of the question you think you need answered. It's out there somewhere. Also today, when we had done this, I'll just say quickly, I really want to set up a site or a place where all of us can kind of do our version of Clubhouse, but it's about trying to keep connecting, almost like LinkedIn squared.
Yeah.
Like, how can we really get face to face and have that intimate and expansive dialogue together? So that's something that I'm going to task the team with coming up with sooner than later.
That's great. I'm sure you'll have a lot of people who want to be part of that. And in fact, Ryan asks, how do we get our company in front of the Footprint Coalition?
If you check out fpcventures.com, what the hell is it? I'm looking at my head of social media right now. Footprintcoalition.com. It's that simple, isn't it? Look, that was not on my briefing, so no wonder I dropped the ball. I want to ask you too, yeah. Dan, like after today, if you would, kind sir. And by the way, I want to thank everybody who is prepping us to get ready for this, and all the people who are behind the camera and watching this. I want to thank you because, it's not easy to streamline this. I would love to ask you, Dan, like, will you please reflect and think about how to help us connect further with the bigger LinkedIn family?
Absolutely. I've got more tips and tricks for you than you will know what to do with. And we will get all of those to you.
I work for tips.
Yes. And we have gone way off script here, which is the best kind of interview. So that's good. I want to ask, like, how do you, this is trying to save the planet, trying to invest in these companies, and still working in movies. Those are a lot of jobs. Those are a lot of heavy things on your shoulders. What's a typical day like for you? Do you ever unplug, or is it right from one to the other? Do you spend like half your year working on this and half your year working on movies? How are you organizing your life?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I was in a very heated pickleball match yesterday. That's why I didn't get bit by a three-fanged python or anything. The future is hybrid.
All right.
My missus is such a powerhouse. Her show Sweet Tooth is on right now, #1 on Netflix, and she did Perry Mason last year that I was loosely involved in. But I think sometimes it's like whoever's hot should be the one pitching. And I have kind of, again, I've slowed the cadence of my film and TV career, because this has just been obviously the area in which I needed the most prep. But I got big and fun things coming out, and the way that I'm going to do it is I'm not just going to lay around in my trailer between setups anymore. I'm going to be on Zooms and making connections and doing dinners after work and calling overseas when I'm driving to set at 6 a.m. It's so this goes back to the answer to a previous question. It's like, how do we do this new normal? It's like we kind of get to create what it is. And as much as that disgust response that we were all having, I know people were going back in the office for the first time. They're like, ugh. But I think that we don't have to be afraid of returning to what seems like the old, because the 0 point has been reached. The faders have all come down on the control board, and we can kind of, create our own reality a little bit more moving forward. But I'm still going to make movies. I still got a ton of fun stuff and things to announce that I'll also bring to LinkedIn at some point. But my real mission here is to stay under the tutelage of folks like you, and to try to do something big and fun and good that's a bit of a legacy play for all of us.
Yeah, and we talk about this as the great reshuffle. This question about everyone's job. It's not just you who is feeling this. As you said, everyone is feeling this right now. We spent this last year in this very weird 18 months in this very weird space, and suddenly it feels like you can't go back to the way things were. And there's just so much change going on, and you are a big part of this. I want to ask one more question, and we're going to call out to some more people who are on the screen.
Yes,
so one of the things we always like to do on the show is get career advice from people who have been incredibly successful. That obviously includes you. What do you say when people come to you and they say, I have to split this in two, actually. What do people, when you were talking to young people who want to make it in entertainment, what is your advice? And then what's your advice for people who want to make it in the sustainability space?
Well, look, life is always doing something. And tomorrow is like today. It's just a little bit longer. Patience is so critical. I think particularly in this information age. I was really fortunate in that I came up in a time where it was very competitive, and a lot of people were multi-hyphenates, had a lot of different skills. And I felt very much like I don't even know how to compete at an entry level in this wildly assertive business. And then I think part of it is you just get seat time, whether it's theater or putting yourself on tape or writing something. I mean, I think there's been an explosion of young artists who've just decided my way in is to write my own ticket. That was not possible 25 years ago. Absolutely not an occurrence. So, but like they always say, sometimes if you have too many options, you won't be satisfied with any one you choose. I think if you put things in several smaller buckets, like these are the things I can do to hone my craft, these are the ways I can try to break into the business, and then these are the ways I can remind myself that life is 70% maintenance and 30% activity. I think Americans in particular tend to be all about output. We have to learn from our brothers and sisters from older cultures that know that input is honestly what's critical, particularly if you're talking about being an artist. Now, as far as the startups and tech and green tech and all that fun stuff, again, I think it's a full-time job, and there's elements of luck, but I think a lot of it just comes down to information is experience nowadays. The more I can soak up, the more informed I can be, then my intuition feels safe to come out and start making connections.
That's great. So the secret to success is listening, is being there, is soaking things up and then pacing yourself.
And survival.
Survival. Excellent advice, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I want to give a shout out to some more people who are on here. We had so many people joining. Sonia from Cuba, Kara from Omaha, Jessica from Boston. Mohammed says, "You are my hero." Tara says, "I love you." And Karishma says, "I can't believe I'm seeing RDJ on LinkedIn." What a great way to end this. But
more importantly, look, Bruce Lee's having an ice cream cone. There's a real icon.
That's it. Doesn't get any better than that. All right. Thank you for joining us. We will see more of you on LinkedIn. I'll get back to you off camera with some ideas about how to make the most of it. And thank you again for joining us here.
This was a blast. Thanks, pal.
All right, that was terrific. You can find this interview each week as a podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also get more advice from the world's top leaders by subscribing to my newsletter using the link you see on the screen. And you can find more of LinkedIn on your newsfeed. If you're on the desktop, look in the right rail. You will see that whole LinkedIn area. On mobile, go into the search box, type LinkedIn News. You're going to find all the news you could use. Finally, I want to give a big shout out to tomorrow's LinkedIn News live show. We are going to have Caroline Fairchild, my colleague, joined by sports legal scholars and a former NFL cornerback from the Jacksonville Jaguars, discussing the recent Supreme Court ruling against the NCAA on student athlete compensation. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern. I will be tuning in. I hope you will as well. Thank you for joining us here on LinkedIn Live, and This Is Working, and I will see you next time.